10 Tales of Christmas, Chapter 14, The Christmas Gift. It was Christmas Eve, and, except for Mr. Wilson, every member of the Wilson family was sharing in the fun of trimming the big, fragrant fir tree that stood in the bay window. Even the baby in his playpen was enjoying the excitement of tinsel and tree lights, icicles and ornaments, and packages everywhere. But Mr. Wilson, alone in the hallway, clutched the telephone in his hand, scarcely believing the words that came crackling over the line. Usually, the polite voice was saying, in an emergency of this sort, we arranged space with the airport motel for offloaded passengers. But we knew the little girl was going to the hospital in Minneapolis, and we thought she might need special care a motel couldn't give. And then, when she told us she spent last night at your home, we knew the problem was solved. Of course, we'll have her driven to your address. Mr. Wilson managed to say politely, "You did exactly the right thing. Thank you, and goodbye." Then he put down the phone and sighed heavily. "Of all the places for Ella May Gruthers to spend Christmas Eve, it has to be here," he muttered. That kid. He could see Ella May again, straw-colored hair straggling, dark eyes snapping, hunched over her crutches at the airline terminal magazine stand. He'd ask her what magazine she would like to look at on the plane. "Look at a magazine," Ella May had replied loudly and scornfully. "Get me a seat so's I can look out the window. I'm taking a trip, ain't I?" Everything anybody tries to do for Ella May is a flop, Mr. Wilson thought. Some merry addition that kid will be to our Christmas. Well, I might as well get the bad news over with. In the living room doorway he paused, his eyes suddenly focused on Jenny, the middle Wilson. Kneeling by the tree, she was carefully draping icicles along the boughs. Jenny, exactly Ella May's age. A sudden flush came over Mr. Wilson's face. What if it was Jenny at the airport? A Jenny nobody wanted. Just then, she turned her head. "Come on in, Daddy. You haven't helped a bit yet." "How about keeping this steady for me, Dad?" Todd called from the top of the ladder. "My helping hand isn't much help." He grinned down at Carol, his twin sister. "Much help? Who's not much help? When I said give the baby a spool to play with, I meant an empty spool," Carol answered. "Look at your youngest son, Dad." Johnny, wreathed and tangled in red satin ribbon, staggered among the bars of his playpen, squealing excitedly. Mrs. Wilson looked up at her husband. "Who was that calling, dear?" "The airport," Mr. Wilson replied. "Todd, you're going to have to clip that top or the star will scratch the ceiling." Why on earth was the airport calling?" Mrs. Wilson asked. Suddenly she put down the package she was wrapping. "Don't tell me something's gone wrong with Ella May's flight." "Ella May's flight never got off the ground," Mr. Wilson said gloomily. "After we put her on the plane and left, word came through that the Minneapolis is sucked in. No planes can land. Big blizzard. Anyhow, the airline's people learned from Ella May that she'd been staying with us. Now they will have somebody drive the child back here." "I'll bet they will," Carol explained. "They probably can't wait to get that kid off their hands." Todd clipped the star into place and started down the ladder. "Dad, you aren't the only member of the Crippled Children's Committee in town," he said. "How come this family is always the one to get the overnight visitors? And 2 nights of Ella May? Wow." Even Mrs. Wilson looked cross. "Well, it is too bad, Richard," she said. "Christmas is a time for families to be close together. Carol and Todd home from college for just a few days, and Jenny wanting her room to herself, and all of us wrapping Christmas presents. Presents! What on earth will we do about presents for Ella May? After all, we can't all be gaily unwrapping gifts Christmas morning with that child just looking on. We can't leave her out of things, no matter if she is, well, difficult." "It looks to me as though Ella May has already been left out of things," Mr. Wilson said quietly. "There was a reason the committee scheduled this trip for the 24th. The district nurse told me that at least Ella May might get in on the fun of the hospital's annual Christmas party. She'd have had that much, anyhow, in between now and her operation." Then Jenny, who hadn't said one word up to now, suddenly burst into action. She jumped up, her face nearly as red as the ruby Christmas ornaments she held, and turned to her father. "You can be sorry for her if you want to, Daddy, but you don't have to share your room with a messy kid and have all your things wrecked. And you aren't just her age like me. And I don't care if she is on crutches and wears braces. She's mean. She's the meanest kid I ever saw, and I hate her. With that, Jenny hurled the Christmas ornaments straight across the room. They bounced, rolled airily, and then smashed into sharp, curving fragments against chairs, tables, and the piano. Jenny! Everybody exclaimed at once, and Jenny burst into tears and ran at top speed out of the room. Immediately, the baby began to wail. Mrs. Wilson lifted up the sobbing youngest member of the family and jiggled him soothingly. Carol, dear, would you get the dustpan? And better bring some wet paper toweling, too. We want to make sure no sharp pieces are left on the rug. Why can't Jenny do it? Carol asked grumpily. Jenny seems to have all the problems she can stand, Mrs. Wilson replied. I'm ashamed to say it, but I almost feel like throwing things myself. Ella May is no Tiny Tim from A Christmas Carol, I must say. Todd burst out laughing. I can just hear Ella May saying, God bless us, each and every one. He shook his head. That's a kid only her mother could love. Maybe that's part of the trouble, Mr. Wilson said. She doesn't have one. Mrs. Wilson stared and then gently brushed her cheek against the baby's silky hair. She looked at her husband. Richard, she said softly, I guess where you're concerned, there's always room at the inn, isn't there? And I'm proud of you for it. Mr. Wilson turned red. I don't think I was filled with joy or anything. She's a hard kid to have around, I admit it. But, he broke off. Say she'll be here any minute. What do we do about presents? Mrs. Wilson sighed. One thing at a time, dear. Let me get the baby to bed first, and I'm sending Jenny back downstairs. She looked at Carol and Todd. Jenny doesn't deserve any congratulations for that performance, but just remember, she only did what most of us felt like doing. By the time the doorbell rang and the airline's hostess handed Ella May over to the Wilsons, the rug had been brushed clean, packages had been stacked under the fragrant boughs of the tree, and the baby was sound asleep upstairs, and Jenny was in the kitchen, silently stuffing walnuts into dates and rolling them in powdered sugar. Merry Christmas, Ella May, Mrs. Wilson said cheerfully. Here, let me help you off with your coat. Ella May's cold, dark eyes flashed. Take my crutches, she said angrily, and one at a time. I'll take off my own coat. Wait until you see our tree, Ella May, Carol said hastily. It's just beautiful. Wait? That's what I've been doing ever since I struck this stupid town. Wait. Right now, I'm supposed to be riding on an airplane in Minneapolis. She shrugged her arm out of the coat sleeve. Give me back my crutches. Where's the tree? Carol led the way into the living room, and Todd, with Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, trailed behind Ella May. Her crutches sprang out on either side, hitting table legs and sending the lamps into wild wobbles. She swung herself toward the tree and stared. It was a beautiful tree, glowing and twinkling and smelling so nice. What do you think of it, Ella May? Mr. Wilson asked. Ella May swallowed. They got one as good at the airport. I seen it. She swung around again. Where's your other kid? She asked. Jenny. Hard at work in the kitchen making stuffed dates, Mrs. Wilson replied. I'll call her. Or would you like to go out and help? You needn't bother either way, Ella May answered in a hard voice. I'd rather get to bed. There was a quick silence, and then Todd said, It's Christmas Eve, and usually we sing some carols, get out the guitars and stuff like that. How about it? We wish you'd stick around. A sudden glint had come into Ella May's eyes. Did you say guitars? You mean you got more than one? Todd nodded. I have one and Carol has one. Are they plug-ins? Ella May asked. I never seen me a plug-in but on the TV. Todd and Carol exchanged glasses. Oh, the electric kind, Carol said quickly. No, but we had a lot of fun with them anyhow. Jenny got one, Ella May looking sharply from Carol to Todd. No, Jenny won't even sing. Says she can't. We think she's just fooling about that, though, because Mother says she sings up a storm around here when Carol and I are away at school. Ella May glanced down at her heavy shoes and then looked up very quickly. Maybe Jenny can sing nice, she said slowly. It's hard when everybody's better than you are. The Wilsons looked swiftly at each other and then looked swiftly away. Carol cleared her throat. I never thought of that, did you, Todd? Sure. Didn't you ever notice when I went out for basketball after the 9th grade? All the guys got to be about 8 feet tall, and there I was. I couldn't get past 5'11" stretching. For a while there, I wouldn't even go to a game. Ella May hunched up on her crutches. You mean you go to them games now? She said, staring hard. Sure. How come you do that? Gave up, I guess. Wasn't anything left to do but enjoy myself. Do you know it's already 9 o'clock? I have a good idea. It's so comfortable sitting around in a robe and just knowing that when you're all sleepy, all you have to do is tumble into bed. Todd, maybe you're not strong enough. Maybe you're not tall enough, but you're strong enough. How about taking Ella May upstairs, and back, of course, and then we'll sing carols. As Mrs. Wilson went upstairs with Todd carrying Ella May and Carol following with crutches and suitcase, Ginny came into the living room. She walked over to her father. Daddy, I'm sorry I smashed the tree ornaments, she said in a low voice. Mr. Wilson turned toward the tree. Carol cleaned everything up, he said quietly, and bent down to look at the gaily wrapped packages. We still don't have any idea what we can give Ella May. Jenny hesitated, and then she held out a gift tag. I wrote it out in the kitchen, she said. She swallowed hard. I thought maybe you and Mother could put it on the right present, she finished. Mr. Wilson took the tag and read it aloud. To our friend Ella May, from all of the Wilson family. Why, that's very nice, Jenny. I guess you know that Todd's and Carol's presents probably wouldn't be anywhere near right for Ella May, don't you? Jenny nodded. I guess I can stand it, she sighed. I guess maybe I can even stand Ella May. Maybe Christmas will soften her up or something. Or soften us up or something. Her father smiled. Okay, honey, thanks for the card. Why don't you go up and put on your robe and pajamas? Sorta keep Ella May company. Jenny grinned. What robe? I bet Ella May is wrapped up in mine right this minute. Oh, you'll think of something, her father grinned back. And Jenny, thanks again. For the card, I mean. With Todd and Carol playing their guitars, they sang all the carols, and Ella May knew most of them. And then there was hot chocolate, and then there was twinkly frosted Christmas cookies in pine tree shapes and star shapes, and Jenny contributed a plate of her stuffed dates, and now it was nearly midnight. Ella May put down her cup. I made me up a song, she said shyly. Not no Christmas carol, of course. It's more just a winter song. Sing it for us. Ella May hesitated. She glanced at Jenny. Everybody can do something, she said in an apologetic kind of voice. Me? I play the guitar. Well, for goodness sakes, why didn't you say so? Carol explained. Here, take mine. She put it in Ella May's lap. Come on, let's hear it. Ella May's dark eyes flashed. Get ready, she said. She leaned forward and strummed a few expert chords. This here guitar looks different from my Uncle Rafe's, but I see it works about as good. She looked up. This here is about what I seen once. It was right in town, and we was late starting home up the mountain. There was lights at every corner, and there was lots of snow, but the rest, well, that's made up. It's real short. What did you call it? Winter Song? Todd asked. Winter Song by Miss Ella May Gruther, folks. Coming right up. Ella May's chin lifted. I call it Angel in the Snow, she said with dignity. In the shadowed living room, the Christmas tree glowed soft, making blurred circles of lights on boughs and gifts and faces around the tree. Ella May's pale strawberry hair fell forward as she bent over Carol's guitar. In the soft light from the tree, she was a lovely, glowing child. Her fingers struck a chord, and she looked up at them all. And then her voice rose clear and sweet. I got a story of winter time, you know. It's about a night I seen the streetlight in the snow. Like a diamond blanket, snow lay in front of me, and diamonds, diamonds, diamonds was all that I could see. I run right through them glitters, and I lay me down so fair, and I sang me a song. 'Twas a streetlight prayer. Oh, streetlight on the corner, shine on me below, where I'm making careful an angel in the snow. Ella May's fingers stopped. That's my one song, she said sternly, so you needn't ask for no more. Jenny jumped up. It was just beautiful. I could just see the diamonds, and I could see the angel in the snow. The clock in the hallway began to chime. Merry Christmas, everybody, Mrs. Wilson cried. Darling, it was beautiful, just as Jenny said. Merry, Merry Christmas. In the deserted living room, Mr. Wilson sorted out Jenny's special Christmas present from beneath the tree, a guitar for her very own. Carefully, he replaced the tag marked Jenny, Merry Christmas from Mommy and Daddy with the tag for Ella May. He looked at Jenny's writing thoughtfully, from the Wilson family. But it's Jenny who's giving up her gift, he thought. He strode over to the desk, found a Christmas card, and wrote, Dear Jenny, if you like Ella May's present, give me one quick wink, and I'll see that you have one just like it. Special love this Christmas Day, Daddy. Restacking the package marked for Ella May, he propped the envelope marked Jenny on top and then walked to the hall doorway and turned off the lights. He hesitated a moment in the darkened room, and his hand went back to the wall switch. Once again, the tree sprang into glowing, radiant life, and it seemed to him that, like this tree, the Christmas spirit had shone more brightly in the Wilson home tonight because of a tough little girl named Ella May. By Vic